using your parallel rulers. When you're plotting on a chart, a nautical chart, you're going to be asked to find directions, and the way you can find the directions is by using this particular area of the chart. This is called a compass rose. Now, you'll notice some charts have multiple compass rose, and what happens is the manufacturer of the chart wants to make it as easy as possible so you're not walking a parallel rulers. When you start moving a parallel rulers a lot, one thing you'll notice is they'll slip and slide. And if I had to take a measurement here and walk it a foot across my chart, I can be off a couple of degrees by the time I get to the compass rose. So what the chart manufacturer does is they place compass rose in strategic areas to help you plot, to make it more accurate. So with the compass row in this area, when I'm working in this area, this is the compass row I'm going to use. And again, if I go north, I'm going to use the one up there. If I go west, I'm going to use the one on the other side. I like this compass rose because it's out in the open, and when they stamped it on the chart, they stamped it to the east side of the Chesapeake Light, so you won't have all this writing in here. It's nice and clean. You can see, you can read the numbers really easy. And if you notice, there is an outside circle of numbers and there's an inside circle of numbers. The outside circle of numbers has a little star up there, and that tells you that's true. All bearings taken from the outside circle on a chart are going to be true. If you notice on the inside, these numbers at the 0, it has an arrow. This tells you that this is magnetic. Now, go back to your navigation general. If you remember the difference, the terminology of magnetic and true is variation. Variation determines what part of the earth you're working on. So that's why these two, where we just don't have one circle. We have a difference in variation, and always on the chart you'll see it marked. In this one here, you'll see the variation marked. And on our plotting, we're always going to use the same variation because we're going to stay on the same chart. Now, when you move up to the Block Island and Long Island chart, there's variation difference because you're in a different part of the world. So when we start working on Chesapeake Bay, you work 4 or 5 problems in Chesapeake Bay, and then you move to Block Island. Always check your variation because variation changes on the parts of the world that you are, so never use the same variation. Now, we're going to start using this compass rose in finding our directions. One thing you will notice on the compass rose is they have a small crosshair in the center. Now, this is sort of like if you're going to be going out duck hunting or deer hunting, you put the crosshair on the animal or what you want to shoot, and you always look across the crosshair. So I always tell everybody that we work with is when you read any of these numbers, make sure your parallel ruler is on that crosshair. Now, by putting the parallel ruler over here, it means absolutely nothing. This number means absolutely nothing. If I take my parallel ruler and I open it up to the crosshair, now I can read it. Now you'll see it goes right straight down the lines. I can read the numbers and everything is good. I can only read the numbers once the parallel ruler crosses or comes in contact with the crosshair. So this is how we read it. If I laid my parallel ruler and I wanted to know if I had a rendezvous place over here and I was over here, what direction would I go? I line my parallel ruler up and I open my parallel ruler up until I hit the crosshair. And remember, I'm over here and I want to go that way, so I read it over here. Now, a lot of people have really good eyes and they have no trouble reading that. I like to make a mark, pull my parallel rulers out the way. And another thing a lot of people will do is they'll leave that parallel ruler there and they'll look and say, oh, there's 80. That must be 83. But if you pull your parallel ruler away, you find out it's really 70. And I count each individual one, 70, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That direction I would have to steer is 77 degrees true. That's how you use a compass rule. Read the true, make your mark, pull your parallel ruler out the way so you can read it. Now we're going to show you how to actually go about and start walking the parallel rulers. Using the parallel rulers now, what we're going to do is we're now going to put it into a project. We have a problem on our plot, and let's say we're at this buoy and we hear there's some really good fishing going on right now over at Chesapeake Light. So I'm sitting out here and maybe it's a little hazy and I'm unable to see all this way, this distance, so I need to know what direction I will steer. Now, you could sit there and look at it and go, well, I'm going to steer probably in about 120 some degrees, and I'll get that direction. But you have all this equipment, you have your chart, you have your parallel rulers. Let's find out what direction we really have to steer. So what I'm going to do is I'm at this buoy, and I want to go to Chesapeake Light. What I will do is I'll take my parallel ruler, line it up on the buoy, line it up on the light. Now, the parallel rulers are lined up in the direction. So what I have to do now, this is called walking the parallel ruler. I have to walk the parallel ruler over to my compass rose. Now, I could probably do this and get it closer, but we're not looking for close, we're looking for accurate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line my parallel ruler up on my buoy and on Chesapeake Light. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold one side down. By holding the side down farthest away from the compass rose, I'm able to move it. Now, this is still the same distance. This side and this side still represents the direction I'm going to travel. Now, if I open up my parallel ruler all the way, I don't get to the crosshair. The crosshair is located here. My parallel ruler is right here. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to walk my parallel ruler over. So what I do is don't open it up all the way. Open it up about half the way. Now I'm going to hold this side down and I'm going to close it. Now, one thing you learn over the years is you don't want these two parallel rulers to come together and click. By coming together and clicking, what happens is it'll throw the parallel ruler. You'll hit the parallel ruler. So real easy, just kind of bring them as close as possible. I'm going to hold it again, and here we go. I'm going to walk it right over to the crosshair. Now I'm on the crosshair. And remember, I was in the buoy on this direction, and I wanted to go to Chesapeake Light on this direction. So what happens is, notice my parallel ruler crosses my compass rose. Remember, I'm reading from the crosshair in the direction that I'm traveling. That's the direction I want to travel. So I pull my parallel ruler off, and I read it. It's 120, 130, 131, 130 degrees, 132 degrees true. That's the direction that I would steer from this buoy to the great fishing at Chesapeake Light. This is using a compass rose. What I try to do is I try to tell students, put the compass rose on the side of put the parallel ruler on the side of the crosshair, and you won't have to walk it. Because one of the things that I was talking about is the parallel rulers are known to slip. If I open it up too wide or something, or if I might hit them over. Now I'm off. I'm no longer replicating that direction. So what I try to do is I tell them, say, hey, let's put that parallel ruler on the side of the compass rose. Line it up on that buoy, line it up on Chesapeake Light. Look what I had to do. I only had to walk it a little ways then. Another thing is, I have my buoy here, I have Chesapeake Light here, and my compass rose is over here. What I want to try to do is put my parallel ruler down to where the compass rose are. If I take my parallel ruler up, and I put it here and here, I have to do a lot of walking. But look at this, how I go across. I'm going to have to keep on walking until I can get my parallel ruler on the other side. So try to keep your parallel ruler on the side of the compass rose, on the side of the compass rose on the direction that you're going to be traveling, and try to move a parallel ruler as less as possible. One of the things you'll find on the bottom of the parallel ruler, they're called corks. And these corks hold a stiffness and it holds traction almost like a car tire on your street. It holds traction onto the chart. So it prevents a lot of slipping. But what you'll find is as you start practicing and as you start working on a chart, you start dragging these corks across the lead that you've drawn on the paper, and your cork will get covered with lead, and that makes them slippery. So what you may want to do every now and then is take your pencil eraser and just put some eraser on that cork. It's just like adding more tread to a tire. You may even want to take your parallel ruler, just kind of wipe it down a little bit with your pencil eraser. And what that does is it gives you some grip. A couple other tricks is if you see on a parallel ruler, there's a black line on the inside of the parallel ruler. That actually helps you as far as accuracy goes a lot of times too. If I wanted to go 90 degrees, and sometimes when I take my pencil and I put right on 90 degrees, and I put my crosshair right on it, you may find that where you're working, there shows a shadow onto the chart, and you have trouble reading it because of the shadow. So what I find sometimes is if I take that line, and I'm going to put my crosshair on that line, and I line it up on 90 degrees, accuracy just increased. Because now it's almost like a scope. I have the black line. Now it doesn't matter when I walk it to where this line still represents this line, still represents this line. They're all going, this whole parallel ruler is going in 90 degrees. So I can walk it over, and it doesn't matter how many times you open it up, you walk this way and this way, as long as your parallel ruler doesn't slip, you're still representing the direction that you're traveling. So a couple tricks. Use your black line inside if you want to line it up on the buoy in the lighthouse. Take your black line, line it up on the buoy, line it up on the light. Sometimes you'll find that the shadows are just too much and it's hard to read. Use that black line inside. Also, one important thing, never plot sitting down. If I'm plotting and I'm looking at it in this direction, it's going to make things a lot harder. Always stand up when you plot. Look down onto your work. That's using a parallel ruler.